I'm Mike Giarlo, and this is a screencast of some remarks that I presented at the Cultural Heritage Archives Symposium last week in Washington, D.C. Thank you to the Library of Congress and the American Folklife Center for having me out to talk to them. This screencast will explore digital preservation and stewardship, and I'll kick it off with remarks about both of those topics and the fundamental importance of community in the context of my work over the past few years. About my background, I'm a librarian and a technologist, and I've been working in IT roles in academia and research libraries since 1999, primarily in the area of digital repository development. Currently, I'm Penn State's digital library architect, and my position is situated within Information Technology Services, or ITS, the central IT organization, in a department that works collaboratively with the university libraries on repository and data management services. At Penn State, my role means I am on the hook for technical architecture and strategy, particularly for repository services. I'm a periodically active software developer, and I also have a proclivity towards building and working within communities of practice. I'm going to tell you a story about me and my work over the past few years, not because my experiences are unique or even that remarkable, but rather because they reflect the reality of one person and one institution grappling with the real and quotidian challenges of the digital preservation and stewardship game. My hope is that these will be generalizable. I share these experiences because I have personally found quite valuable the lessons and strategies I've learned over the years, and I hope that by surfacing these, you'll confirm that these are your realities, challenge them, or offer your own in return. In 2008, joint strategic planning between ITS and the libraries at Penn State led to the creation of a shared program for cyber infrastructure, digital content, and data stewardship, or Content Stewardship Program for short. The program was built to bring together the strengths of a large IT organization with those of a large knowledge management organization in order to offer centrally supported services around digital stewardship. The program was driven both by federal funding agency requirements for data management plans and by faculty looking for better support for e-research or e-science initiatives. The program's first action was hiring complementary positions, viewed as cornerstones to the success of the program. These positions were a digital library architect to report up through ITS, my position, and a digital content strategist to report up through the libraries. These positions were strategically placed, the strategist reporting to an associate dean, and me reporting to a senior director of IT, meaning that we have privileged access to both the dean of libraries and the vice provost for information technology, which sent the signal that the Content Stewardship Program was an important new strategic initiative. The first project, chartered by the Content Stewardship Program, was to assess the library's strategy for delivering digital content. First, we selected a rubric for evaluating the delivery platforms in use. The rubric, which we adapted from work Purdue and the University of Wisconsin did, comparing repository software, contained technical measures such as access control, metadata standards, and file format support, in addition to general information like level of adoption, development community, and customer support model. With the rubric in hand, we interviewed nearly 35 people, including staff, faculty, and students from across the libraries, ITS, and campus departments, to learn what they thought of the platforms they regularly used, what they liked, what they didn't like, and so on. What we found was that 3 of the 4 applications the libraries used to deliver digital content were moribund, and none of the 4 offered content owners or curators the necessary tools to manage their content over time. That work was instead happening in other environments, coordinated quite often by desktop spreadsheets and copies of files littered across map network drives or burned to CDs and stuffed into dusty cabinets. In short, there was a huge opportunity to improve preservation of the library's investment in digital content. The review set us down the path of looking into tools and platforms for digital curation and digital preservation. In parallel, I was struggling with my new role. That's not exactly right, though. I loved my role. It's what I'd been looking to do for years. What I was struggling with was an apparent lack of a national or international community of practice for folks like me, that is, repository architects and strategists. I'm not sure how many of you can relate to this, not knowing your backgrounds. Perhaps you're fortunate enough to have an active, healthy, engaging community of practice of your own. At any rate, I hope you can relate to this struggle. Prior to Penn State, I was a software developer at the Library of Congress, and before that held similar positions at Princeton University and the University of Washington. I'd gotten very comfortable within my community of practice, or my tribe, which was code for lib, a large self-organizing community with an established annual conference, an open access journal, a mailing list with over 2,000 colleagues, and more. At Penn State, I'd found myself in a brand new role, a broadly defined and fuzzy role. Where was my tribe? Who could I lean on, bounce ideas off of, band together with? I spent some time spread over a few months searching for it, and it turns out I already knew 24 people who had roles similar to mine, even if their titles were different or their positions were situated elsewhere in their organization structure. I decided, along with a close colleague and friend at UC San Diego, that we needed to build our own tribe. We brainstormed ideas about the scope, scale, and character of a new group, and opened up the conversation to around 25 people with similar positions. This group came to the consensus that there was in fact a niche to form a new community. We started a series of events under the name Curate Camp, and the idea was to host a loosely structured event or unconference with the express purpose of building community in the digital curation domain, connecting architects, strategists, and technologists, my tribe, with subject matter experts, curators, bibliographers, archivists, what have you. Since we formed Curate Camp in 2010, around 15 events have been held, ranging in size from 25 participants to nearly 100, ranging in topics from curation tools to digital exhibitions, from preservation of audiovisual content to connecting software developers with professional catalogers. Events have been held all over North America, with attendees from countless walks of life, and the attendees are the real story of Curate Camp because they've driven the agendas, organized the events, and brought passion to each one. I couldn't have imagined this sort of response back when we decided to form Curate Camp, and I couldn't be happier about where it's gone. Digital preservation and stewardship, though clearly related to analog preservation and stewardship, are a new game, and that for me is exciting, but it's also been disorienting as we collectively define our new universe. Having a tribe has helped me realize that this is new for all of us, and that's okay because we're in this together. If you don't have a tribe, build your own. In so doing, you just might realize you were surrounded by one all along. Armed as I was with a thriving community of practice in Curate Camp, we at Penn State set about exploring tools and platforms for digital preservation and stewardship. At the time, we were enamored of an emerging set of specifications and tools that challenged long-held assumptions about digital preservation practices. Eager to apply this new technology to our digital preservation efforts, the Content Stewardship Program chartered a new project to gather use cases documenting the curatorial work being done within the libraries and university archives. In parallel, we learned more about this new set of specs and tools, tinkered with them, and sparked numerous discussions of the topic at events such as Curate Camp, on mailing lists, and on social networks. When we finished gathering use cases, we learned not only how our curators were managing their work, we learned that they didn't often consider themselves curators, and moreover, they hardly realized they had a community of peers within their own organization. In practice, the fragmentation caused by a one-off rather than architectural approach to digital stewardship not only meant we had different systems in place and different workflows, but also that certain employees or entire departments were effectively siloed. With the curator's use cases documented, we built them a prototype tool for deposit, description, auditing, and version management of digital assets, building on top of the aforementioned emerging specs and tools. The prototyping experience was a positive one, and there were two lasting impacts of the prototype despite its short life and narrow scope. First, we successfully raised awareness of siloization, if you will, by connecting curators with one another across structural and technological boundaries. And second, After presenting our prototype during a well-attended poster session at Open Repositories 2011, we were forced to reevaluate our technical direction based on the excellent comments, questions, and challenges from those who stopped by to talk about our poster. Though we were able to produce a prototype based on these tools in little over 4 months, and we found these tools more compelling than some of their alternatives, we ultimately decided that for scale and sustainability purposes, it was more important for our institution, Penn State, to align our digital preservation efforts with that of a larger, more active community. Leaving aside the technical reasons for adopting a new set of technologies for building preservation services, there were other compelling reasons to align our efforts at Penn State with those of an established and growing community. The community I'm referring to is the Hydra Project, a collaborative of institutions, largely cultural heritage institutions, working together since 2008 to develop repository services based on a common architecture and common open source software. Hydra's focus on community was attractive to Penn State, primarily for sustainability purposes. We could have waited for a community to accrete around our prior choice of technologies, or we could have built our repository entirely in-house, but we were more confident about sustaining this work, knowing that a growing number of institutions were adopting the same technologies and were in fact committing to sustaining the project, its community, and its software products. Because Hydra already had an established base in the form of a core platform and common middleware, there was a scaling rationale behind our decision to adopt Hydra as well. Our developers could, in theory, focus on building web-based interfaces for our customers rather than on building infrastructure. This has been borne out in practice. That is, we could scale up user-facing services more quickly, not to mention more sustainably, than if we decided to build from the ground up, or to base our work on less mature or less well-adopted technologies. Since we adopted Hydra in early 2012, we've developed two production services: ScholarSphere, Penn State's institutional repository for durable access to scholarly works and data, and ArchiveSphere, still in development, a preservation repository for university archive staff to manage digital archival materials including electronic records. Choosing Hydra required us to train our technical staff in new technologies and required us to work in largely new ways, such as 1. Working out in the open with many eyes on our source code since Hydra is an open source project. 2. Considering the impact of our work on other Hydra institutions, meaning that we not only allow greater access to our code, but that we contribute back to core components, thus giving back to the community. And also 3. Coordinating our work with other Hydra partners so that we can divide work among institutions, align timelines, and share resources. Few institutions have the resources to do this sort of work alone in a way that scales sufficiently and can be sustained. Or at least Penn State doesn't, and so the shared development that occurs in the Hydra community allows us all to do more with less. Having worked for 5 different institutions, academic and research libraries, between 2002 and 2013, I would also offer a personal reflection that this is true at other institutions, not just Penn State. The community's reaction to ScholarSphere and ArchiveSphere has been extremely positive, and in fact, a group of developers extracted functionality from ScholarSphere into a new open source component called Sophia, so that other institutions could more easily bootstrap their own repository applications. Sophia, based on the work that we started for ScholarSphere, is now in production at 5 institutions, with around 10 more institutions working on adopting or planning to adopt Sophia now. Needless to say, we are now in a very different place than we were a few short years ago, when Penn State was more or less invisible in the digital preservation community, and much of this success is due to our alignment with a growing community. In the time since Penn State joined the Hydra project as a partner in June 2012, the community has more than doubled in size, from 9 partner institutions up to 20, with yet more coming. I can't state strongly enough how much mileage we've gotten out of putting community, whether at the local, organizational, or national level, ahead of other concerns as a fundamental strategy for sustaining digital preservation and stewardship services at Penn State. I'd be interested in hearing how this matches your experiences. Thank you.